Contrary to popular belief, performing a rescue and a fully involved structure fire at midnight is not something that we do every day.
Newport Battalion 6 and all units responding. We have the RP still on the line. Advise there's a lot of smoke and he is trapped in the bedroom. We do also have reports of PD on scene trying to communicate via window. Again, person is trapped inside one of the rooms filling up with smoke.
The dispatch occurred just before midnight on March 10th.
We got toned out for a structure fire about midnight. The initial reports that there was a possible victim.
That night specifically was it was a unique night. It was down maybe in the mid-40s or so as far as the temperature was concerned. But we were expecting rain that night, and there was a heavy cloud cover that resided over the skies.
As I pulled up, I saw the hydrant and I looked at the smoke, and it was there was kind of a lot of it, but it wasn't, there was no active fire or anything like that, and it wasn't too turbulent yet.
When we first showed up on scene, we didn't see any active fire. There was a lot of heavy smoke in the area. PD was on scene.
When we got here, I pulled up and lined up the cross-lay hose beds so that we'd have a direct shot towards the building. And you can see that we had a walkway that led right to the front of where the fire was mainly focused.
Battalion 6, be advised, Newport and stick to the secure water supply.
We were getting reports from our dispatch that there was a victim, potentially on the second floor in a bedroom, unable to get out.
Newport Battalion 6, Newport Engine 66 is getting reports that we might have a victim on the second story window. We're going to be throwing a ladder and we're going to be in rescue mode.
I gave a report back to our responding units that we did have a victim on the second story, that we were going to be in the rescue mode, and that was basically going to be our whole focus.
I came up with the ladder coming this way, and the captain was able to grab the back end. Together we threw the ladder right here and getting ready to ascend up to the patient.
And up in that second story window is where we saw our elderly male victim.
When I first got here and looked up, all we saw was thick black smoke coming out of that window. And at one point I saw a hand reach out, and I was relieved that he was still alive.
I knew with just the volume of smoke that we had that we needed to balance this to a working assignment and have additional resources responding to us.
We were second on scene. We were coming up Dover, and Engine 6 reported that there was a victim on the second story.
IC from Newport Engine 66. We're rescuing a patient off the second story window of a center unit fourplex. We need assistance and medical towards the alpha side.
I looked through the window downstairs, and you could see a lot of heavy smoke as well as some flame all throughout the first floor. There was a window pane that was intact at that time. I wasn't quite sure how long that was going to stay intact.
At that time, we were getting ready to go up. Cameron and I were going to ascend the ladder. This window right here was the window that broke out, and fireball kind of came out at us right here.
This massive fireball just pushed us all back.
And that fireball lit up this entire area here, so I knew at that point that the water I was giving him was super important, because there wasn't going to be any action until we can suppress that fire.
That's when we saw we had a fully involved first floor fire with fire ascending up the stairs over here. So there was no other option but to go in through the window.
Kelly started to ascend her way up the ladder, and that's when that fireball had blown out that window. And the hose line that I had in place was able to open that up, and it was one foot was on the ladder trying to brace it for my firefighter ascending. I'm trying to direct 150 to 200 gallons of water into this window to try to suppress it, and I'm trying to give a report to the responding units that were now arriving what we had and what we needed as far as additional personnel, medical standing here on the alpha side of the structure.
So the ladder was right here. I was able to put on my Scott mask and ascend up to that window right there. When I got up there, I no longer saw the patient. I was yelling at him. I could feel the window. I couldn't see anything because the thick smoke, but I could feel that something was obstructing it. That's when I noticed that the bookcase was there, and I was able to talk to him at that point and hear his voice, and he confirmed that there's a bookcase.
It just felt like forever as she's making her way up that ladder, and she goes in through the window. It just felt like forever until that next responding unit arrived. I think it was no more than just a few minutes.
I pushed the bookcase in and went into head first. There were still some blinds hanging down at that point.
I also noticed that there was a heavy amount of flame and fire and heat coming from the first floor, what I assumed to be the kitchen area, the rear of this first floor. And that's when I had decided to go ahead and redirect my hose line from going upstairs to now trying to redirect it towards the Charlie side of the back of this first floor to try to suppress some of that flame and take some of the heat out of the fire.
So you can see that the window's not very big. My side profile with my bottle wasn't going to even let me get one leg in. That's why I had to go in head first right there.
I started to have to regroup and try to figure out, okay, how can I get a secondary exit for our firefighter and potentially for the victim that's going to be pulled out. And that's when I had redirected my hose line from here going through the window around the corner into the front door.
There's a lot happening with what the captain's doing, what the engineer's doing, but I am solely focused right now on getting this man out. And I know that right now I'm alone in doing that, and that's just the way it worked out. For our safety, captain had to suppress that fire.
I was working with Engine 64's engineer and firefighter. The three of us were making our way inside the first floor, and it just seemed like we were continuing to be hampered by forward progress. There was large furniture that was inside there.
So as I'm going in, I'm aware that all the training that I've done is kind of coming together at this moment, because like Cameron said earlier, rescues are not something we do every day. When it's coming in the middle of the night, and 10 minutes ago I was in a dead sleep, and now I know I'm trying to save a life, it really puts your mind in a whole different frame.
What we later found out that there was a motorcycle, an antique motorcycle that was positioned in a horizontal fashion that really prohibited us from making our way towards the back side of that first floor. We did the best we could to try to extinguish what flame that we had and what kind of heat we had.
When I finally get to him, get everything out of the way, and I realize as I put my arm around him, he's a big man, and I got to make this happen.
This fire required us to split our crews, and when you're sending your firefighter up into what potentially could just be a burning inferno, you see a lot of heavy charged smoke coming out of that second floor. You're not quite sure what kind of fire involvement you have. It was extremely unsettling. That's why I really had a sense of urgency to obviously try to suppress the fire here on the ground floor, but also to try to make my way into the fire and try to provide some type of secondary access.
I followed her up to help assist get the victim out. Once I got to the top of the ladder, Paramedic Conte had stated that he was difficult to get out of the second floor window and was going to need some help. So I climbed into the window to help get him out of the window.
When we got him around and I got him to the window, and John Kluve came up at that time, and my air supply started getting low and I hear my vibro alert going off, I had this barrage of thoughts of risk management of him and me, and I even thought of, I have 2 children I need to get home to. I don't want to run out of air in this room either and be exposed to that, nor, and I know this is funny, I think how embarrassing I'd be if I ran out of air up here. And would I even get in trouble for breaking policy? It's weird when I didn't think about what I was thinking at the time, as weird as that sounds. I thought about all these things later in the week or 2 afterwards, all the series of thoughts I had, making each decision second by second, minute by minute to get this happen. So when we got him around and I knew he was in good position to get out, that's the time I knew that my air was going to run out, and I didn't want to be a problem in this. I didn't want to be another victim in this fire, so I headed out.
She had to exit the room, so in that time I was able to figure out how to get him out of the window, and there's a lot of debris on the floor, and I was able to pile it up next to the window, backed him up with his back to the window, and was able to get him stand on some of that debris that was in the room. He was able to get his butt onto the window sill, and we were able to turn him around and get out the window. By that time, a second ladder was thrown. Engineer Heddenberg was on the ladder, as well as Paramedic Chidley. I was able to pass the victim off to them, and they were able to assist him down the ladder. I did a quick search in the room for a second victim. I could not find anyone else, so I exited the ladder and came down and went to rehab, changed my bottle, and went back to work.
As the fire was progressing, I could see they were starting to knock down some of the fire, and I distinctly remember coming around the rig and seeing two of our firefighters on each side of the victim and walking him out of this. And the background was just chaos and guys working hard and hose and water and fire and all of that going on. But through all of that, we saw this victim being walked out of it under his own power. And at that point, it was kind of that sense of relief, because to that point, every second counted. Everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing without a whole lot of communication, because we all kind of fell back as to what we know we have to get done. But that moment when he was coming out of it with all of that in the background was a pretty awesome moment for us. And after that, it was, that was awesome, but then we had to get back to work and make sure that what we were doing is going to put that fire out all the way and try and save as much as we could. So, but this was my point of view from the whole thing, and so it was a pretty unique experience for sure.
I guess the take home for me was how time warps. I couldn't believe how quick I heard my fire alert going off. I felt like I had just gotten in there and gotten him to the window, and I can't believe that oxygen's going off already. And I can see how firefighters get very deep inside, and you hear about firefighters running out of air, and you think outside, how'd that happen? You're trained to watch your air and watch your lights and all that stuff, but when you're so task focused on what you're doing, those things slide to the side because you're trying to accomplish something bigger than you've ever had to accomplish before. And my safety didn't even come into my own mind until I was running out of air. So I was happy to see. I felt a sense of relief when my other fellow firefighters were there, and I knew they were there to help me, to help him now. And together, we got that all done. They had to complete what I had started, and if it weren't for the whole team working together, that rescue would not have played out as smoothly as it did, to him being able to literally walk away and walk himself over to the ambulance to be transported to the hospital. It was truly a team effort.
It was very relieving to me to be able to give minimal direction. Everyone knew what they had to do. Everyone had a job, and beyond their primary job, they were also assisting with the secondary jobs that needed to be done. That was very refreshing to me. I attribute that to not only the 18 years to 20 years of service that each of these personnel have, but just to the extreme training that we do on a daily basis.